Welcome to
our channel.
I saw an old friend on social media yesterday and she had just bought a house. I was genuinely happy for her because I know how long she'd been saving and how hard she'd worked. But after I closed the app, I had this strange feeling that I wasn't doing enough with my own life, even though nothing had actually changed for me that day.
I know that feeling. What's strange is that you can be completely satisfied with your life at 10 in the morning, then look at someone else's life for 30 seconds and suddenly start questioning everything. You haven't lost your job, your home, your friends, or anything else, but somehow their good news makes your own life feel smaller.
That's exactly what happened to me. Before I saw her post, I was having a perfectly normal day. I had plans for the weekend, I'd finished something I'd been working on, and I was actually feeling pretty good. Then I saw the house, the keys, the smiling photo, and suddenly my brain started asking why I wasn't at the same point.
And the funny thing is, you probably don't even want exactly what she has. That's what makes comparison so confusing. You might not want her house, her neighborhood, her mortgage, or her lifestyle, but seeing that she's reached a certain milestone makes you wonder whether you should have reached some milestone too.
Yes, maybe that's what bothered me. It wasn't really about the house. It was about the timeline. I suddenly felt as if there was some invisible schedule for life and everyone else was following it while I was somehow falling behind.
I used to believe that too. I thought there were certain ages when certain things were supposed to happen. Finish school, get a job, become financially stable, buy a place, have a relationship, travel, build a career, and somehow become a fully organized adult along the way.
And nobody actually gives you the schedule.
No, you just absorb it from everyone around you. Family, friends, television, advertisements, social media, conversations at work. Nobody sits you down and says, by 35, you must have achieved these 7 things, but somehow you still end up feeling like you're late.
That's such a strange thing about growing up. When you're young, you imagine adulthood as something you eventually arrive at. You think there will be a point where everything makes sense and you'll finally know what you're doing. Then you become an adult and realize everyone is still figuring things out.
Some people are just better at looking like they know what they're doing.
That's probably true.
I have a friend who always seems completely in control. Good job, nice apartment, healthy lifestyle, always traveling somewhere, always posting pictures from restaurants. If you looked at his social media, you'd probably think he had everything figured out.
And does he?
Not at all. I had dinner with him a few months ago, and he spent half the evening telling me how worried he was about his career. He was thinking about changing jobs, but was terrified he'd make the wrong decision. I remember thinking, wait, you're worried too.
That's the problem. We compare our private lives with other people's public lives. We know every doubt, mistake, awkward moment, and unfinished project in our own lives. But with other people, we usually see the finished version they choose to show us.
Exactly, you know your own behind-the-scenes footage. With everyone else, you mostly see the trailer.
That's a good way of putting it.
And trailers are designed to make things look exciting.
Especially on social media.
Especially there.
But I don't want to blame social media for everything. Even before social media, people compared themselves to other people. Families compared children, neighbors compared houses, coworkers compared salaries. People have always looked around and asked whether they're doing well compared with everyone else.
True, social media just gives comparison a much bigger audience and makes it available all day. You used to compare yourself with the people you happen to know. Now you can compare yourself with thousands of people before breakfast.
And that's probably not natural for the brain. We're not really designed to process that many people's lives at once.
Definitely not. Imagine waking up and immediately receiving news about 1,000 different people. Someone got married, someone had a baby, someone got promoted, someone ran a marathon, someone moved to another country. Someone started a business, someone bought a car.
And someone is apparently having the best breakfast you've ever seen.
That's important information.
Apparently.
The problem is that your brain doesn't categorize all of that as entertainment. Some part of you treats it as information about where you stand.
That's why even harmless posts can affect you. Someone posts a photo from a beach and you don't consciously think, I'm behind in life because this person is on a beach. but you still feel something.
Especially if you're having a boring Tuesday afternoon.
Exactly.
You're sitting at work eating a sandwich, and someone is standing in front of a beautiful lake in another country.
And suddenly your sandwich feels very disappointing.
Poor sandwich.
It didn't do anything wrong.
It never does.
But comparison can make perfectly good things feel inadequate. That's what worries me. You can have a good life and still spend so much time noticing the ways in which it doesn't look like someone else's.
And sometimes comparison doesn't even make you want more. It just makes you appreciate what you have less.
That's an important distinction.
You might have a job you genuinely enjoy. Then you see someone else's promotion, and suddenly your job feels ordinary. You might love your apartment, then see someone's new place, and suddenly notice everything wrong with yours.
Or you might be happy being single until you see 5 engagement announcements in 1 week.
That's dangerous.
Very.
Especially during wedding season.
You open your phone and everyone is getting engaged.
Then you start wondering whether there's something wrong with you.
Even if you were perfectly happy the day before.
That's the part I find fascinating. The external situation hasn't changed, only the comparison has changed.
Yes, and sometimes the person you're comparing yourself with isn't even someone you'd want to trade lives with.
That's happened to me with work. I've looked at someone else's career and thought they were far ahead of me. Then I found out what their schedule was actually like, how often they traveled for work, how little free time they had, and how stressed they were. I realized I didn't want their career. I just wanted the recognition they seemed to be getting.
That's a really important difference. Sometimes we don't want the thing itself. We want what we imagine the thing represents.
Exactly, a promotion might represent success. A house might represent stability. A relationship might represent being loved. A big vacation might represent freedom. So when we see someone with those things, we don't necessarily want the object or experience. We want the feeling we think comes with it.
And that's where comparison becomes complicated. Because if you identify what you're actually missing, you might discover that there are other ways to get it.
Right? If you think you want a promotion because you want recognition, maybe the real problem is that you don't feel appreciated at work. If you think you want a bigger apartment because you're embarrassed by your current one, maybe the real issue is how you're judging yourself.
Or if you think you want a relationship because everyone around you is getting married, maybe what you actually want is companionship, not necessarily marriage.
That's a big difference.
It is.
I remember comparing myself to a friend who traveled constantly. Every few weeks there was another photo from somewhere beautiful. I started feeling like my life was too ordinary. Then I realized I actually don't enjoy traveling that often. I like going somewhere for a few days, but I love having a routine at home.
So what were you comparing?
My life to his photographs.
Not even his actual life.
Exactly.
That's almost impossible to win.
It is, you're comparing your entire reality with a carefully selected collection of someone else's highlights.
And the more you do that, the more distorted your idea of normal life becomes.
Because normal life isn't very photogenic.
No.
Nobody posts a picture of themselves paying bills.
Unless they're complaining about the bills.
Nobody posts spent 3 hours cleaning the kitchen today.
Someone probably does.
Okay, but it's not the main content.
Fair.
Nobody posts the boring parts of a successful career either. You see the award, not the years of work. You see the new office, not the stressful meetings. You see the finished project, not the 10 times it almost failed.
That's why I sometimes remind myself that success usually has a boring side. Even things we admire from a distance involve ordinary days that nobody sees.
That's true. Someone who runs a successful business still has to answer emails.
Someone who owns a beautiful house still has to clean it.
Someone who looks incredibly fit still has days when they don't want to exercise.
Someone in a happy relationship still has arguments.
Someone with a great career still worries about money.
Someone who seems confident still has insecurities.
And someone who looks like they're ahead might secretly feel completely lost.
Which brings us back to something you said earlier. Everyone has a private life that we don't see.
And sometimes I think remembering that is enough to weaken comparison.
Not eliminate it,
No,
just weaken it.
exactly.
Because comparison probably isn't something we can completely stop. It's part of how people understand themselves. We naturally notice what other people are doing and use it as information.
The problem is when comparison becomes the main way we measure ourselves.
Yes, if your entire sense of progress depends on where you stand compared with other people, you'll never feel finished.
Because there will always be someone ahead.
Always.
Someone younger.
Someone richer.
Someone more successful.
Someone more attractive.
Someone more confident.
Someone who seems happier.
Someone who started earlier.
Someone who got luckier.
And then someone else will look at you and think you're the person who's ahead.
That's the strange part.
You might be someone else's comparison without realizing it.
I've thought about that before. There could be someone looking at my life and thinking, I wish I had what she has, while I'm looking at someone else thinking exactly the same thing about them.
It's like everyone is standing in a circle, looking at the person next to them, and assuming that person has figured everything out.
Meanwhile, nobody feels completely certain.
That should probably make us feel better.
It does a little.
A little.
I still want the house.
Fair enough.
I'm only human.
At least you're honest.
But seriously, I think there is a healthy form of comparison too. Sometimes seeing what other people are doing can inspire you. You see someone learn a language, start exercising, change careers, or build something interesting, and it makes you think, maybe I could do something like that.
That's very different from feeling inferior.
Exactly, inspiration says that's possible. Comparison says I'm not good enough because I'm not there yet.
I like that distinction. One gives you energy, the other takes it away.
Yes, and sometimes the same person can create both feelings depending on your mood.
That's true. If I'm feeling confident, I might see someone's success and think, that's amazing. Maybe I should try something similar. If I'm already having a bad day, I might see the same post and think, of course they're doing better than me.
So the problem isn't always the information. Sometimes it's the state we're in when we receive it.
That makes sense.
That's why I try not to make big judgments about my life when I'm tired or upset.
That's smart.
Because everything looks worse at midnight.
Especially your career.
Especially your career.
And your relationships.
Definitely.
And your financial situation.
Absolutely.
At midnight, apparently your entire life needs to be rebuilt.
Then you wake up the next morning and realize you were just tired.
I've made entire 5-year plans at 1 in the morning.
And how many did you follow?
None.
That sounds about right.
The next morning, I usually can't even remember why the plan seemed so urgent.
That's another reason comparison can be dangerous. When you're already emotionally tired, someone else's success can feel like evidence that you're failing, even when it's just evidence that someone else is having a good moment.
And success isn't a fixed amount.
What do you mean?
Sometimes we act as if someone else's success takes something away from us. If my friend gets promoted, somehow I feel less successful, but her promotion doesn't reduce my achievements.
That's true.
There's enough room for both people to do well.
Although emotionally, that's not always how it feels.
No, human emotions aren't always logical.
Unfortunately,
I wish they were.
that would make life much easier.
Probably much less interesting too.
Maybe.
I think another problem is that we compare different stages of life. Someone might have started their career 10 years before you. Someone might have had family support. Someone might have made a lucky decision. Someone might have taken a risk you weren't ready to take.
Or they might simply have different priorities.
Exactly.
That's why comparing outcomes without knowing the circumstances doesn't tell us very much.
Two people can make completely reasonable choices and end up with very different lives.
And neither life is necessarily better.
That's difficult to remember because society loves ranking things.
We rank schools, jobs, houses, cities, salaries, universities, restaurants.
Even holidays.
Definitely holidays.
People ask, where have you traveled?
As if your answer is a score.
Exactly.
And sometimes conversations become a competition without anyone saying it directly.
You mention one trip, someone mentions two.
You say you changed jobs, someone tells you about their promotion.
You buy a car, someone buys a better car.
You renovate your kitchen, someone posts their new house.
You learn to cook, someone starts making restaurant-quality food.
At some point, you're just exhausted.
That's why I like people who don't turn every conversation into a comparison.
Me too.
You can tell them something good that happened to you, and they don't immediately tell you something bigger that happened to them.
They just listen.
And celebrate with you.
That's a rare quality.
It is.
Maybe because they're comfortable with themselves.
Probably.
When you don't need to prove your own success, you can genuinely enjoy someone else's.
That's something I've noticed with older people I admire. The people who are really secure don't seem to need to compete over every little thing.
Yes, they don't have to tell you how successful they are.
They just live their lives.
And they don't seem very interested in keeping score.
Maybe that's wisdom.
Or maybe they're just tired.
Could be both.
There's another kind of comparison I find interesting, comparing yourself with your younger self.
That's actually the one I find most useful.
Really?
Sometimes, instead of asking, am I doing as well as that person, I ask, am I in a better place than I was 2 years ago?
That can be much kinder.
And more meaningful. Maybe I haven't reached some huge goal, but maybe I've become more confident, more patient, better at managing money, better at communicating, or simply more comfortable with myself.
Those changes are difficult to photograph.
Exactly.
You can't post a picture saying, I handle difficult conversations better now.
You could.
Nobody would understand.
Maybe a motivational quote underneath.
Please don't.
Fair.
But you're right, some of the most important progress isn't visible from the outside.
That's why comparing yourself with your past self can sometimes reveal progress that other people can't see.
Although that comparison can also become unhealthy if you expect yourself to constantly improve.
True.
You don't have to become better every single month.
That's a relief.
Sometimes maintaining your life is an achievement.
Especially during difficult periods.
Exactly. If you're going through a stressful year and you simply manage to keep yourself going, that counts for something.
That's something people don't talk about enough. There's so much pressure to optimize everything. Improve your career, improve your health, improve your relationships, improve your finances, improve your productivity.
Improve your morning routine.
Improve your sleep.
Improve your diet.
Improve your vocabulary.
Improve your posture.
Improve your life.
At some point you need to sit down.
And do nothing.
Exactly.
Maybe we compare ourselves because we're constantly being told that we're supposed to be improving.
That's a really interesting point.
If you're always trying to become a better version of yourself, then someone else's success can feel like evidence that you're not improving quickly enough.
And maybe life isn't a race toward a perfect version of yourself. Maybe there are periods when you grow and periods when you rest and periods when you simply live.
I like that.
Me too.
It feels less exhausting.
It does.
I remember being in my 20s and thinking I needed to figure everything out quickly. Every year felt like a deadline. If I hadn't achieved something by a certain age, I assumed I'd missed my chance.
And now
I realize how much time I actually have.
that's something people often understand later than they wish they had.
You can't see the length of your life when you're young. 10 years feels enormous, so every year seems incredibly important.
But then 10 years pass and you realize how much can change.
Exactly. Someone can completely change careers, move countries, build a business, fall in love, end a relationship, learn a language, or discover a new passion in a few years.
Which means being behind at one particular moment doesn't tell you much about where you'll be later.
That's probably one of the biggest things I've learned.
Me too.
But I still compare myself.
Of course.
Knowing better doesn't mean feeling better every time.
No, we can understand something logically and still have an emotional reaction.
So what do you do when it happens?
I try to pause before believing the feeling. If I see someone doing something amazing and immediately feel bad about myself, I ask, what exactly am I reacting to?
And what do you usually discover?
Sometimes I discover that I genuinely want something. That's useful information. Other times I realize I'm simply afraid that I'm falling behind.
That's a big difference.
It is, if I genuinely want something, I can think about how to move toward it. If I'm just afraid of being behind, I don't necessarily need to change anything.
That's a really practical way to look at it.
It helps me.
I usually close the app.
That's practical too.
Sometimes the best solution is surprisingly simple.
You don't need to win an argument with your brain. You can just stop feeding it information.
Exactly.
And maybe that's why taking breaks from social media can be useful.
Especially when you're going through a period where you're already questioning yourself.
Yes, not because social media is evil, but because sometimes you need to hear your own voice without constantly hearing everyone else's.
That's similar to what we were talking about in our last conversation.
About wanting to be alone.
Yeah, there's a connection there. Sometimes you need space from other people's lives as well as space from other people.
That's true.
Because if you're constantly looking at what everyone else is doing, it's hard to notice what you're doing.
Exactly.
You start living like an audience member instead of the main character.
That's a little dramatic.
But you know what I mean.
I do.
You're watching everyone else's progress instead of paying attention to your own.
And your own progress can be surprisingly quiet.
It can.
Maybe that's why we need to deliberately notice it.
Write it down.
Sometimes,
Like what?
small things, things you've learned, difficult situations you handled better, habits you've changed, decisions you're proud of, conversations you finally had, things you used to be afraid of that don't scare you anymore.
That sounds useful because those things disappear from memory quickly.
Exactly, we remember the big failures and big achievements, but not the small changes that happen gradually.
And those small changes might actually tell us more about who we're becoming.
Yes.
You know, I just thought of something.
What?
Maybe comparison becomes less painful when you have a clear definition of what enough means for yourself.
Explain.
If you don't know what you want, you'll naturally use other people's lives as a reference. You'll look around and think, maybe that's what success looks like. But if you've decided what matters to you, other people's achievements become less threatening.
I completely agree. If I know that I value free time, meaningful work, close friendships, and a calm home, I don't automatically need the biggest salary or the most impressive job title.
Exactly.
That doesn't mean I don't care about money or success. It means they're not the only measurements.
And different people can choose different measurements.
That's probably the part society doesn't make easy.
No, it's much easier to sell people something when they're dissatisfied with their current life.
That's true.
If you can convince someone that their house is too small, their clothes aren't fashionable enough, their phone is too old, their vacation isn't impressive enough, or their career isn't successful enough, you can sell them something.
Which means comparison isn't only personal, it's also part of business.
Absolutely.
Advertising has been using insecurity forever.
Social media just made it much more personal.
You don't just see an advertisement for a product, you see someone who looks like they have the life you want using the product.
And suddenly the product becomes connected to the life.
Exactly.
You don't buy the watch because you need to know the time.
You buy the image of yourself wearing the watch.
You don't buy the expensive coffee machine because your current one doesn't make coffee.
You buy the idea that you're the kind of person who has that kitchen.
That's dangerous,
Very.
but also fascinating.
It is.
And it makes me wonder how much of what we want actually comes from us.
That's a difficult question.
Maybe impossible to answer completely,
Probably.
but it's worth asking.
Especially when we notice ourselves comparing.
Because sometimes the feeling is useful information.
Yes, not every uncomfortable feeling is something we need to get rid of.
Sometimes it tells us something.
Exactly, maybe you're comparing yourself to someone because they've done something you genuinely want to do.
Then that's worth exploring.
But maybe you're comparing because you're afraid people will judge you.
Then maybe the answer isn't changing your life. Maybe it's changing whose opinion matters.
That's much harder,
Definitely.
but probably more important.
Maybe.
You know what I find comforting?
What?
Most people aren't thinking about us nearly as much as we imagine.
That's both comforting and slightly insulting.
Why insulting?
Because I like to believe I'm more interesting than I actually am.
You are interesting,
Thank you.
but people are mostly busy thinking about themselves.
That's true.
They're worrying about their own jobs, their own relationships, their own money, their own appearance, their own decisions.
Which means that person you think you're competing with might be lying awake tonight worrying about whether they're doing enough.
Exactly.
Maybe they're looking at someone else.
Probably.
And that person is looking at someone else.
And so on.
A giant chain of people feeling slightly behind.
That's a pretty depressing way to describe humanity.
Sorry.
But also kind of funny.
It is.
Maybe the way out isn't to stop noticing other people, it's to stop using them as the scoreboard.
I like that.
You can admire someone without ranking yourself against them.
You can celebrate their success without turning it into evidence against yourself.
You can learn from them without copying their life.
And you can want something they have without deciding that you're failing until you get it.
Exactly.
That feels much healthier.
It does.
And maybe next time you see your friend's new house, you can just say, "That's wonderful, I'm happy for her."
I can.
And then,
Close the app.
good,
Go make tea.
even better.
And remember that my life didn't suddenly become worse because someone else's became better.
That's probably the sentence we should end on.
Not yet.
Why not?
Because I know us, we'll keep talking for another 20 minutes.
You're probably right.
And honestly, I'm glad we did.
Might too.
Because comparison is one of those things that can feel embarrassing to admit. We want to be generous. We want to be happy for other people. But sometimes someone else's success touches a sensitive part of us.
And admitting that doesn't make you a bad person.
No, it makes you human.
You can be happy for someone and still feel insecure about yourself.
You can admire someone and still feel jealous.
You can celebrate someone else's achievement and still wish you had something similar.
Those feelings can exist at the same time.
And maybe the important thing is what you do with them.
Exactly.
You don't have to punish yourself for feeling jealous.
You don't have to pretend you're completely unaffected.
You just have to understand what the feeling is trying to tell you.
And then decide whether you actually want to do something about it.
Or let it go.
Sometimes letting it go is the better choice.
Sometimes moving towards something is the better choice.
And sometimes you need a little time before you know which one it is.
Which brings us back to taking things slowly.
And giving yourself some space.
And maybe getting off your phone.
There you go again.
It's good advice.
It is.
So are you still thinking about that house?
A little.
Are you going to buy one?
Not tomorrow,
That's progress.
but maybe someday.
And when that day comes,
I'll probably be happy.
and if someone else buys a bigger one,
I'll try not to care.
that's probably all any of us can do.
Yeah,
We can notice the comparison without letting it decide how we feel about our lives.
we can appreciate other people's journeys without abandoning our own.
And we can remember that everyone is moving at a different speed.
There isn't one universal timeline,
There isn't one definition of success.
and there isn't one right way to build a life.
That's a pretty good place to leave it.
I think so,
This conversation started with a house.
and somehow ended with the meaning of success.
That happens with us.
It does.
Maybe that's why we keep talking.
Probably.
All right, I'm going to stop before we start comparing our conversation with other podcasts.
Don't.
Imagine someone else had a much better conversation about comparison.
Then we'd have to compare ourselves again.
Exactly.
So let's not.
Good plan.
Thanks for spending this time with us.
And if you're listening, maybe the next time you catch yourself comparing your life with someone else's, pause for a second and ask a simple question. Do I actually want what they have, or do I just want to feel the way I imagine they feel?
That question might change the whole conversation in your head.
Because sometimes the answer isn't, I need to catch up.
Sometimes it's, I'm already where I want to be.
And sometimes it's, there is something I genuinely want, and now I know what it is.
Both answers are useful,
They are.
and neither one requires you to become someone else,
You just keep moving at your own pace.
even if that pace changes,
Even if you take a break.
even if someone else seems far ahead.
And even if you don't know exactly where you're going yet.
That's okay too.
All right.
All right.
Now we're really finished.
This time, yes.
Good.
See you in the next conversation.
See you next time.